The flames were already crawling toward his boots. Officer Marcus Webb couldn't scream, the smoke had stolen his voice. Beside him, his canine partner Shadow whimpered through the wire, cutting into his fur, blood dripping onto gasoline-soaked earth. The man in the black hood watched them burn, phone pressed to his ear. Phase 1 complete. No witnesses. Then she appeared. 7 years old. Barefoot. Starving. A homeless ghost who shouldn't exist. Hope Miller had been invisible for 8 months. She had nothing. No home, no father, no future. Just a stray dog, and the desperate instinct to survive. But when she saw that cop and his dog burning alive, she made a choice that would expose a murderer, destroy a billionaire's empire, and prove that sometimes the smallest hands can pull the world back from the flames. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from. Subscribe and stay until the very end, because this story will change how you see courage forever. Hope Miller's stomach had been empty for 2 days. She walked through the dense Colorado pines with her canvas bag hanging limp at her side, her bare feet calloused from months of forest living. Beside her trotted Whisper, a scruffy mutt she'd found starving near the highway last spring. The dog was her only friend, her only warmth on cold nights, her only reason to keep moving forward. Just a little more, Hope whispered, her voice cracked and dry. Mama needs the medicine plants, then we can rest. Whisper whined softly and pressed against her leg. 7 years old. That's how old Hope was when her world collapsed. Her father, a firefighter, a hero, the strongest man she'd ever known, died in a forest fire 2 years ago. The insurance company said it was his fault. They denied the claim. The medical bills from his burns, his weeks in the ICU, they took everything. The house, the car, her mother's nursing license when Sarah couldn't pay the renewal fees. Now they lived in a hidden camp deep in Blackwood Valley, invisible, forgotten, surviving on roots, berries, and the desperate hope that tomorrow might be different. Hope spotted a cluster of wild chamomile near a fallen log. She knelt down, her small fingers working quickly to harvest the flowers. Mama's cough had gotten worse last night. The chamomile would help. It had to help. Whisper suddenly froze. Hope looked up. The dog's hackles rose in a sharp ridge along her spine. A low growl rumbled from deep in her throat, a sound Hope had only heard once before when a black bear wandered too close to their camp. "What is it, girl?" Whisper didn't move. Her nose lifted, catching something on the morning breeze. Then Hope smelled it too. Smoke. But not the clean smoke of a campfire. This was different. Chemical. Bitter. Wrong. And underneath it, gasoline. Hope's heart slammed against her ribs. Fire. The word alone made her hands shake. Fire had taken her father. Fire had destroyed everything she loved. She should run. She should find Mama and hide. But Whisper was already moving, darting through the underbrush toward the smell. "Whisper, no! Come back!" The dog didn't listen. Hope grabbed her bag and ran after her, branches scratching her arms, roots catching her bare feet. The smell grew stronger with every step, thick and choking and horribly familiar. She burst through a wall of bushes and stopped dead. Her mind couldn't process what she saw. A man in a police uniform was tied to a wooden post in the center of a small clearing. His head hung forward, blood matting his dark hair. Bruises covered one side of his face. His badge glinted faintly through layers of dirt and ash. Beside him, bound with cruel wire that cut into fur and flesh, was a German shepherd. The dog was whimpering, struggling weakly against the restraints. Blood dripped from cuts on his legs where the wire had sliced too deep. Beneath them both, a ring of gasoline-soaked branches and pine needles. And at the edge of that ring, flames. Small flames. Hungry flames. Creeping closer with every passing second. Hope couldn't breathe. A figure crouched on the far side of the clearing. He wore a black hooded jacket, his face hidden in shadow. In one gloved hand, he held a phone pressed to his ear. In the other, a lighter. "Phase 1 complete," he said, his voice cold and flat. "The evidence burns with him. The dog, too. No witnesses." He ended the call and slipped the phone into his pocket. Then he flicked the lighter. A small blue flame danced at his fingertips. Hope's legs locked. Run, her mind screamed. Run. You're invisible. No one knows you exist. If you get involved, they'll find you. They'll take you from Mama. They'll put you in a home. You'll lose everything. But the German Shepherd's eyes found hers through the smoke. Dark eyes. Desperate eyes. Eyes that said, please, please don't leave me here. Hope's father had the same eyes. In the hospital when the machines were beeping and his burned hands reached for hers. When he whispered, be brave, little one. Be brave for Daddy. She hadn't been brave enough to save him. The hooded man stood and turned toward the flames, his lighter raised. In seconds, the entire ring would ignite. The gasoline would catch. The officer and his dog would burn alive. Whisper made the decision for her. The scruffy dog launched herself at the man with a snarl that echoed through the clearing. She hit him, low teeth snapping at his arm, throwing him off balance. The lighter flew from his hand and disappeared into the brush. The man cursed and kicked Whisper hard in the ribs. The dog yelped and tumbled sideways. Whisper! Hope screamed. The man's head snapped toward her. For one terrible moment their eyes met. His were pale blue and empty, cold in a way that made Hope's skin crawl. Then sirens, faint but unmistakable. Someone else must have seen the smoke. The man hesitated. He looked at the officer, then at Hope, then at the approaching sirens. A calculation passed across his shadowed face. He ran, crashing through the bushes, disappearing into the forest like a ghost, leaving nothing behind but the smell of gasoline and the crackle of growing flames. Hope stood frozen for exactly 2 heartbeats. Then she ran forward. The flames had spread. The ring was catching now, fire racing along the gasoline-soaked wood with terrifying speed. Smoke poured upward, thick and black and choking. No, 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 no. Hope grabbed the first thing she could find, a fallen branch covered with damp moss, and beat at the flames. Sparks flew. Embers scattered. The fire hissed and spat at her like a living thing. Go out. Please go out. She hit it again and again, her arms burning with exhaustion, her lungs screaming for clean air. The heat scorched her face. Smoke blinded her eyes. Whisper recovered and circled frantically, barking at the flames as if she could scare them away. The officer groaned. His head lifted slightly and Hope saw his eyes flutter. Hold on, she cried. I'm trying. The German Shepherd whimpered, struggling harder against the wire. Blood ran freely now from the cuts on his legs. Hope's branch caught fire. She dropped it with a cry and grabbed another. She wouldn't stop. She couldn't stop. Not again. Not like before. The flames died in sections, choked by the damp moss, smothered by her desperate swings, starved of oxygen, as she piled dirt onto the burning embers. It took forever. It took seconds. Time meant nothing. Only the fire. Only the choice. When the last flame sputtered and died, Hope collapsed onto her knees. Her hands were red and blistered. Her throat felt like she'd swallowed broken glass. Smoke still curled from the blackened wood, thin gray ribbons rising into the cold morning air. But the fire was out. Oh God, Hope whispered. Oh God, oh God, oh God. She crawled toward the officer first. His breathing was shallow, ragged, barely there. She pressed her small fingers against his neck, the way Mama had taught her, feeling for the pulse, the proof of life. Faint, thready, but present. You're alive, she breathed. You're still alive. His lips moved. No sound came out. Hope turned to the German Shepherd. The dog was still now exhausted from struggling, but his tail wagged weakly when she approached. I'm going to help you, she said. Don't bite me, okay? Please don't bite me. The wire was wrapped tight around his body, cruel loops that cut into his chest and legs. Hope's blistered fingers worked at the twisted metal, slipping in the blood, pulling and tugging until the first loop came free. The dog whimpered but didn't snap. Good boy. Good boy. Just a little more. The sirens grew louder, closer. Hope knew she should leave. She should disappear before anyone saw her. She was invisible. That's how she and Mama stayed safe. No records, no addresses, no system to swallow them up and spit them out. but the dog's eyes held hers and she couldn't look away. Another loop freed, then another. The German Shepherd scrambled weakly to his feet, favoring his cut legs, and immediately tried to reach the unconscious officer. "Wait," Hope said. "Wait, let me help." She grabbed the ropes binding the officer's chest and pulled. The knots were too tight for her small fingers. She couldn't undo them. But she could drag him away from the smoking ring, away from the danger. She wrapped her arms under his and heaved with everything she had. He was heavy, so heavy. But she didn't stop. The German Shepherd pressed his shoulder against the officer's side, helping to lift, to push, to move his partner toward safety. Together, a 7-year-old homeless girl and a wounded police dog, they dragged the unconscious man across the clearing. When they reached a patch of clean ground, Hope's legs gave out. She sat in the dirt, gasping, her whole body trembling. The officer lay beside her, still breathing, still alive. The German Shepherd collapsed against her leg, his warm weight pressing into her like a thank you. The sirens were very close now. Hope's eyes landed on the radio clipped to the officer's vest. The plastic was melted on one side, but the button still glowed faintly. Her fingers shook as she unclipped it. "Hello?" she whispered into the mic. "Is someone there?" Static hissed. Then a voice, calm, steady, somehow reassuring, despite everything. "This is Lieutenant Daniel Reyes, Blackwood Command. Who is this? Please identify yourself." Hope's throat closed around the words. She was supposed to be invisible. She wasn't supposed to exist. "My name is Hope Miller," she said, and the words felt like jumping off a cliff. "A police officer is hurt. Someone tried to burn him. I put out the fire. But he needs help. He needs help right now." Silence. Then the voice sharpened with urgent concern. "Hope, can you tell me where you are?" She looked around helplessly. Trees, smoke, the sound of water somewhere nearby. "I don't know exactly. There's a creek, I can hear it. And there's an old fence near the trail broken with wire hanging off." "That's enough. I know where you are. Help is coming, Hope. Stay with the officer. Stay with the dog. Do not leave the clearing. Can you do that for me?" "Yes. You're very brave, do you hear me? You're very brave. We're coming." The radio crackled and went silent. Hope looked at the German Shepherd. The dog's head rested on her knee, his dark eyes watching her with something that might have been gratitude, or trust, or both. "We did it," she whispered. "We saved him." Whisper crept out of the bushes, limping slightly, and curled up on her other side. 2 dogs, 1 girl, 1 unconscious officer. The sirens split the air, growing louder, coming closer. Voices shouted in the distance. Footsteps crashed through the underbrush. Hope knew her invisible life was over, but for the first time in 2 years, she didn't feel afraid. She looked at the German Shepherd again, at the blood on his fur, at the wire marks on his legs, at the way he refused to leave his partner's side, even now. "Your person is going to be okay," she told him. "I promise." The dog's tail thumped weakly against the ground, and somewhere in the forest behind them, hidden in the shadow of the pines, the man in the black hood watched through binoculars. His pale blue eyes tracked the girl's face. His phone camera clicked. "Loose end," he murmured. "A significant loose end." He turned and melted deeper into the trees, already planning his next move. Lieutenant Daniel Reyes was the first to reach the clearing. He was 52 years old, with gray at his temples and lines carved deep around his eyes from 28 years of police work. He'd seen things that would break most men. Crime scenes, tragedies, the worst of human nature laid bare in blood and chaos. But when he burst through the bushes and saw what waited for him, his heart nearly stopped. The scorched ring, the bound officer, the wounded K9, and in the middle of it all, a little girl, barefoot, filthy, clearly malnourished with burns on her hands and smoke stains on her face. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. "Hope," Daniel called out, his voice catching. "Hope Miller." The girl looked up. Her eyes were too old for her face. The eyes of someone who had seen too much, lost too much, survived too much. "I'm Hope," she said, Is he going to be okay? Daniel dropped to his knees beside the unconscious officer. His training kicked in automatically, checked the airway, assessed the breathing, feel for the pulse. But his eyes kept drifting back to the girl. You did this, he asked. You put out the fire, she nodded. By yourself. Whisper helped. She gestured to the scruffy mutt pressed against her side. And Shadow helped too. Daniel's throat tightened. Shadow. That was the canine's name, which meant this officer was Marcus, he breathed. Marcus Webb. He knew Marcus, had worked with him for 3 years, trusted him, called him a friend. Radio! Daniel barked over his shoulder as more officers crashed into the clearing. Get paramedics here now. Officer down, canine injured. Move, move, move. Chaos erupted. Officers fanned out to secure the perimeter. A paramedic team appeared with a stretcher. Someone threw a shock blanket around Hope's shoulders. But through it all, Daniel's focus kept returning to the girl. She hadn't moved from the ground. The German Shepherd Shadow had crawled into her lap, his head resting against her chest. Whisper circled them both protectively. Hope, Daniel said gently, kneeling in front of her. Can you tell me what happened? Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. She held them back with a strength that made Daniel's chest ache. There was a man, she said. He was wearing a hood. He had a phone and a lighter. He said Phase 1 complete. The evidence burns with him. Then Whisper attacked him and he ran away. Daniel's blood ran cold. Phase 1. Evidence. This wasn't a random attack. This was organized, calculated. What did he look like? I couldn't see his face, just his eyes. They were blue, really light blue, like ice. Daniel made a mental note. Ice blue eyes. Organized. Evidence of premeditation. You saved Marcus's life, he said softly. You know that, right? If you hadn't been here, I know what fire does. Hope interrupted, her voice barely a whisper. My daddy died in one, 2 years ago. I couldn't save him, but I could save them. Something broke in Daniel's heart. He didn't think. He just moved. His arms wrapped around the girl, pulling her into an embrace that probably violated a dozen protocols but felt absolutely necessary. You're safe now, he murmured against her smoky hair. I've got you. Hope stiffened for a moment, clearly not used to comfort, not used to kindness, and then she melted into him. Her small body shook with silent sobs. Daniel held her tighter. Behind them, the paramedics loaded Marcus onto the stretcher. His eyes were still closed, his breathing steady now with the help of oxygen. Shadow tried to follow, whimpering and limping, but a handler gently restrained him. The canine needs medical attention too, the handler called out. He's lost blood. Those wire cuts are deep. Daniel nodded without letting go of Hope. Get him to the vet. Priority transport. He's a hero too. Shadow's eyes found Hope's across the clearing. Something passed between them. A connection. A bond forged in fire and terror and survival. He's going to be okay, Hope whispered again, though Daniel couldn't tell if she was talking about Marcus or Shadow, or both. They both are, Daniel said. Because of you. When Hope finally pulled back, her face was smeared with tears and soot, and something that might have been the first fragile seed of hope. There's something else, she said quietly. Something important. What is it? I have to tell you about my mama. Daniel's brow furrowed. Your mother. She's in the forest. We live there. We've been hiding for 8 months because we don't have anywhere else to go. If you take me to the police station, you have to promise not to take her away from me. Please, she's all I have. Daniel's mind raced. A homeless mother and daughter living in the forest for 8 months. That explained the bare feet, the malnourishment, the way Hope moved through the trees like she belonged there. Protocol said he should call social services, report the situation, let the system handle it. But Daniel had seen what the system did to children. He'd watched his own daughter fall through the cracks of that system before the fire took her completely. Hope, he said carefully. I'm not going to take your mother away from you. Her eyes widened. You promise. I promise. But I need to make sure you're both safe. Can you take me to your camp? Hope hesitated. 8 months of survival instincts screamed at her to refuse to protect the only security she had left. But something in Daniel's eyes, something sad and kind and broken in a way that felt familiar, made her trust him. "Okay," she said, "but we have to hurry. Mama doesn't know where I am. She'll be worried." Daniel helped her to her feet. "Then let's go." The camp was hidden well. Too well, Daniel thought, as Hope led him through a maze of fallen logs and dense underbrush. He never would have found this place on his own. The shelter was constructed from tarps, salvaged wood, and natural materials almost invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. A woman emerged from behind the main structure as they approached. She was thin, gaunt, even with dark circles under her eyes and worry carved into every line of her face. But she was also beautiful in a haunted way, with the same auburn hair as Hope and the same determined set to her jaw. "Hope!" Sarah Miller ran forward and grabbed her daughter, pulling her into a fierce embrace. "Where have you been? I woke up and you were gone, and I thought... "I'm sorry, Mama. I went to get chamomile for your cough, but then I found..." Sarah's eyes landed on Daniel. Every muscle in her body went rigid. "Who are you?" she demanded, pulling Hope behind her. "Why are you here? How did you find us?" "Mrs. Miller, my name is Lieutenant Daniel Reyes. I'm with the Blackwood Valley Police Department. I'm not here to cause trouble." Sarah's laugh was bitter. "Police? Of course. Come to finish what the system started." "No, ma'am. I'm here because your daughter is a hero." Sarah blinked. "What?" Daniel told her everything. The clearing, the fire, the officer and his canine bound and left to burn, Hope's impossible bravery. By the end, Sarah was crying. She pulled Hope into her arms again, this time so tight that the little girl squeaked in protest. "You could have died," Sarah whispered. "You could have burned." "I know, Mama, but I couldn't just leave them." Daniel watched them hold each other, and something shifted inside him. Something he'd kept locked away since his wife died, since his daughter was lost. "Mrs. Miller," he said quietly, "I know your situation. I'm not going to report you to social services. I'm not going to separate your family." Sarah looked up suspicious. "Why not?" "It's your job, isn't it?" "My job is to protect people, and right now you need protection, not bureaucracy." "We don't need charity." "This isn't charity. This is a debt. Your daughter saved my friend's life. I don't forget debts." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a card. "I have a cabin," he said. "It's small, but it's warm. It's safe. It's been empty for 3 years since my wife..." He stopped, swallowed. "It's been empty too long. I want you to stay there." Sarah stared at the card like it might explode. "Why would you do this?" "You don't know us." "Because I know what it's like to lose everything," Daniel said simply. "And I know that sometimes the difference between surviving and drowning is one person who chooses to help." Hope tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mama, please. I'm tired of being cold. I'm tired of being scared. And Shadow needs me." Shadow. The police dog. The one I saved. He kept looking at me like Daddy used to look at me. Like I mattered. Sarah's resistance crumbled. She took the card. The hospital waiting room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Hope sat in a plastic chair that was too big for her, her legs dangling above the floor. Whisper had been left with Sarah at Daniel's cabin. But Shadow was somewhere in this building in surgery fighting for his life, and Hope couldn't stop thinking about him. "You should eat something," Daniel said, offering her a granola bar from the vending machine. She shook her head. "Not hungry." "Hope, I want to see him. Shadow. I want to see him when he wakes up." Daniel sighed. He understood the feeling all too well. When Marcus had been wheeled through those doors unconscious and pale, Daniel had wanted to follow, to stand guard, to make sure nothing else happened. "The surgery could take hours," he said gently. "I'll wait. Your mother is worried about you. She knows where I am." Hope looked up at him with those two old eyes. Lieutenant Reyes, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you have any kids? The question hit Daniel like a physical blow. His jaw tightened. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair. I had a daughter, he said finally. Her name was Emily. She was 7 years old, same age as you. What happened to her? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. There was a fire, he said. A wildfire outside Helena. My wife and we were separated during the evacuation. She had Emily with her. I thought they were safe. I thought they'd made it out. His voice cracked. They didn't. The road was blocked. They tried to turn around, but the fire moved too fast. By the time I found them, he couldn't finish. Hope reached out and took his hand. Her small fingers were rough with calluses and burn blisters, but her grip was surprisingly strong. My daddy died in a fire too, she said softly. He was a firefighter. He ran into a burning building to save some people and the roof collapsed. He lived for 3 weeks in the hospital. Every day he told me to be brave, and every day I pretended I was. But I wasn't. I was so scared, Lieutenant Reyes. I was so scared. Daniel's eyes burned. I know, he whispered. I know exactly how that feels. They sat together in silence, two strangers bound by grief, by fire, by the impossible weight of loss. Outside, the sun began to set over Blackwood Valley, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, colors like flames, colors like endings, colors like the beginning of something new. A doctor emerged from the double doors 3 hours later. Daniel stood immediately. Marcus Webb, Officer Marcus Webb. How is he? The doctor consulted his clipboard. He's stable. 3rd-degree burns on his lower legs, rope contusions, mild concussion from blunt force trauma to the head. He's lucky to be alive. Another few minutes in that fire and... He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Can I see him? He's been asking for someone, a girl. He keeps saying the little girl and shadow. Do you know what he means? Daniel looked at Hope. She was already on her feet. That's me, she said. I'm the little girl. The doctor frowned. Are you family? She's the one who saved him, Daniel said firmly. She put out the fire. She called for help. She's the reason he's breathing right now. I'd say that makes her family enough. The doctor hesitated, then nodded. Room 204. But only for a few minutes. Marcus Webb looked smaller in the hospital bed. Bandages wrapped his legs from knee to ankle. An IV dripped fluids into his arm. Monitors beeped, steadily tracking his heartbeat, his oxygen, his fragile hold on life. But his eyes were open, and when Hope walked through the door, those eyes filled with tears. It's you, he whispered. You're the one who saved me. Hope stood awkwardly in the doorway, suddenly shy. In the forest with flames licking at her heels and a man's life in her hands, she had felt powerful, brave, necessary. Here in this sterile room with its beeping machines and harsh lights, she felt like what she was, a 7-year-old girl with burned hands and no shoes. I didn't do much, she mumbled. Whisper helped, and Shadow helped too. Shadow. Marcus's face crumpled. Is he... He's in surgery, Daniel said from behind Hope. The vet says he's going to pull through. Lost some blood, but he's fighting, just like you. Marcus let out a shaky breath. Thank God. He looked at Hope again. Really looked at her. Took in the bare feet, the filthy clothes, the too thin frame. What's your name? He asked softly. Hope. Hope Miller. Hope. He rolled the word around like it meant something, like it mattered. That's a beautiful name. Did you know that hope is the thing with feathers? Hope shook her head. It's from a poem, Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. My grandmother used to recite it to me when I was scared. His hand lifted from the bed, weak, trembling, wrapped in gauze. You perched in my soul today, Hope Miller. You landed right there and you sang me back to life." Hope didn't know what to say. So she crossed the room, took his hand and held it gently. "Someone was trying to kill you," she said. "Why?" Marcus's face changed. The warmth faded, replaced by something darker, something afraid. "I found something," he said quietly. "Something I wasn't supposed to find." "What?" Marcus looked at Daniel over Hope's shoulder. His eyes were heavy with warning. "Not here," he said. "Not yet, but soon. You need to know, Daniel. You all need to know, because whoever did this, they're not going to stop. I was just the beginning." A chill ran down Hope's spine. "The man in the hood," she said. "He was on the phone with someone. He said, 'Phase 1 complete.' What does Phase 1 mean? What comes next?" Marcus closed his eyes. "That's what I'm afraid of," he whispered. "That's exactly what I'm afraid of." The monitors beeped. The room fell silent. And somewhere in Blackwood Valley, in an office at the top of a glass tower, a man named Victor Crane reviewed the photograph on his phone. A little girl, auburn hair, fierce eyes, standing in a clearing full of smoke, looking directly at the camera. "Loose end," he murmured again, setting the phone down. He picked up a second phone, dialed a number from memory. "We have a problem," he said. "The officer survived, and there's a witness, a child. I need her found. I need her eliminated, and I need it done before she talks." He hung up without waiting for a response. Outside his window, the sun had fully set over Blackwood Valley. Night had fallen, and somewhere in that darkness, a 7-year-old girl named Hope had no idea that the most powerful man in the valley had just placed a target on her back. The night wrapped around Blackwood Valley like a fist. Hope couldn't sleep. She lay on the couch in Daniel's cabin, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like cedar, and old memories staring at the ceiling while Whisper snored softly at her feet. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flames. Every time the wind rattled the windows, she heard that man's voice. Phase 1 complete. What was Phase 2? Across the room, Sarah sat in an armchair watching her daughter with hollow eyes. She hadn't spoken much since they'd arrived at the cabin. Too much had happened too fast. 8 months of hiding, 8 months of invisibility undone in a single morning. "Mama," Sarah startled. "Yes, baby." "Do you think the bad man will come back?" Sarah's hands twisted in her lap. She wanted to lie. She wanted to say no, of course not. You're safe now, nothing can hurt you. But Hope had already seen too much truth to believe comfortable lies. "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "But Lieutenant Reyes promised to protect us, and I believe him." "Why?" "Because he has the same eyes as your father, the kind of eyes that don't break promises." Hope turned that over in her mind. She thought about Daniel's face when he'd talked about his daughter, about the way his voice had cracked, the way his hands had trembled. He knew what it meant to lose everything. Just like them. "Mama, I want to see Shadow tomorrow." The police dog. He saved his person. He tried so hard, Mama, even when the wire was cutting him, even when it hurt. He didn't give up. Sarah crossed the room and knelt beside the couch. She brushed the hair from Hope's forehead with gentle fingers. "You didn't give up either, baby. You're the bravest person I know." "I don't feel brave, I feel scared." "That's what brave is. Being scared and doing it anyway." Hope thought about that, about her father running into burning buildings, about the way he'd smiled at her from his hospital bed, even when the pain must have been unbearable. "Be brave, little one. Be brave for Daddy." "Okay," Hope whispered. "I'll try." She closed her eyes. This time, the flames didn't come. The phone call came at 6 a.m. Daniel had been awake for hours, sitting at his kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold, staring at photographs he hadn't looked at in years. His wife, his daughter, his family frozen in time, smiling at him from a past that felt like a dream. When his phone rang, he answered without checking the caller ID. "Reyes." Daniel, it's Marcus. I need you here. Now. Daniel was already reaching for his jacket. What's wrong? I remembered something. About the man who did this. About why he wanted me dead. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Daniel. Marcus's voice dropped. Come alone, and don't tell anyone where you're going. The line went dead. Daniel stared at the phone in his hand. His instinct screamed that something was very wrong. Marcus sounded frightened, not just hurt, not just traumatized, but genuinely afraid. He grabbed his keys and headed for the door. Marcus was sitting up in his hospital bed when Daniel arrived. His face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed from sleepless pain, but there was a sharpness in his gaze that hadn't been there yesterday. Close the door, Marcus said immediately. Daniel did. What's going on? What I'm about to tell you could get us both killed. I need you to understand that before I say another word. Daniel pulled a chair to the bedside and sat down. I'm listening. Marcus took a shaky breath. 2 weeks ago, I was assigned to investigate a series of suspicious fires on public land. Small fires. Contained quickly. Nobody thought much of them. I remember. You said it was probably teenagers with fireworks. That's what I thought at first. But then I started noticing patterns. The fires were too evenly spaced. Too strategic. They all occurred on land that was scheduled for federal review. Daniel's brow furrowed. Federal review for what? Timber rights. Those parcels were being assessed for potential sale to private buyers. And here's the thing. Daniel, every single parcel that burned was removed from the sale list. Damaged land doesn't sell. It gets classified as worthless and taken off the market. So someone was deliberately burning land to prevent it from being sold. No. Someone was burning land so they could buy it later, after the federal review passed, after the prices dropped to nothing. Marcus gripped Daniel's arm. I found the paper trail, Daniel. Shell companies, fake buyers, all of them traced back to one name. Who? Marcus hesitated. Fear flickered across his face. Victor Crane. The name hit Daniel like a bucket of ice water. Victor Crane. The wealthiest man in Blackwood Valley. Owner of Crane Timber Industries. Philanthropist. Chamber of Commerce president. The man who had donated the new wing to this very hospital. Marcus, that's a serious accusation. I know what I found. Bank records, property transfers, payments to a Forest Service official named Henderson, the same official who approved the land classifications. It's all connected, Daniel. Crane has been orchestrating fires for years, buying burned land for pennies, making millions. Daniel's mind raced. Why would he want you dead? Because I made copies. I was going to take them to the state investigators, but someone tipped him off. Marcus's voice cracked. He knew Daniel. He knew exactly when I'd be on that trail. He knew my route. He knew I'd be alone. Who else knew your patrol schedule? Only dispatch, and... Marcus stopped. His face went gray. And who else got... Deputy Warren. He asked me yesterday morning if I was doing the North Trail loop. Said he wanted to coordinate coverage. Daniel felt sick. Deputy Warren. A 15-year veteran. A man he'd trusted. You think Warren is working for Crane? I think Crane has people everywhere. I think he's built an entire network over the years. Cops, officials, contractors. Anyone who might see something. Anyone who might talk. Daniel stood and paced toward the window. His reflection stared back at him, older than he remembered, wearier, but still carrying the weight of a badge that was supposed to mean something. Where are the copies now? Hidden. I'll tell you where when we're somewhere safe. But Daniel, there's something else. Something worse. What could be worse than this? Marcus's eyes filled with tears. I know who killed Hope's father. The words stopped Daniel cold. What did you say? Thomas Miller, the firefighter who died 2 years ago. It wasn't an accident, Daniel. I found his name in Crane's files. He was investigating a fire that Crane set. He got too close to the truth. My God. Crane's men trapped him in that building. They blocked his exit. They let him burn. Marcus's voice broke. That little girl's father was murdered, and the man who killed him is still walking free. Daniel braced himself against the wall. His chest felt tight. His vision blurred. Hope, that brave, fierce, broken little girl who had saved Marcus's life. Her father hadn't died a hero's death, he'd been assassinated. Does anyone else know this? No, just me, and now you. Keep it that way. Don't tell anyone, not the nurses, not the other officers, no one. I need to figure out how deep this goes before we make a move. Marcus nodded weakly. Daniel, one more thing. The man who tied me up, the one with the ice blue eyes. I've seen him before. Where? At the Crane Industries Christmas party last year. He was introduced as head of security. Marcus grabbed Daniel's hand. His name is Eric Vance, and if he knows that little girl can identify him, he'll come for her. It's not a question of if, it's when. Daniel's blood turned to ice. I have to go, he said. Stay quiet, stay alive. I'll be back. He was out the door before Marcus could respond. The cabin was too quiet when Daniel arrived. He slammed through the front door, heart pounding, already expecting the worst. But Sarah and Hope were sitting at the kitchen table eating cereal like it was any ordinary morning. Hope looked up. Lieutenant Reyes, can we go see Shadow today? The innocence of the question nearly broke him. This child had no idea that a killer was hunting her, that the most powerful man in the valley wanted her dead. Maybe later, Daniel managed. Right now I need to talk to your mother. Alone. Hope's face fell. Did I do something wrong? No, sweetheart. Not at all. I just need a few minutes with your mama. Can you go play with Whisper in the living room? She nodded reluctantly and slid off her chair. Whisper trotted after her. Sarah's eyes were sharp. What's happened? Daniel sat down across from her. I need you to tell me everything about your husband's death. The color drained from Sarah's face. Why? Because I don't think it was an accident. Sarah's hands started to shake. She gripped the edge of the table, knuckles going white. What are you saying? I'm saying that Thomas may have been murdered, that someone wanted him dead because of something he knew. No, that's not the investigation said. It was structural collapse. They said he went in too deep, that the roof gave way. What was he investigating before he died? Sarah's breath came faster. He didn't talk about his cases at home. He said it was too dangerous to bring work into our lives. Think, Sarah. Was there anything unusual in the weeks before the fire, phone calls, meetings, anyone he seemed worried about? Sarah pressed her hands to her face. There was a man. I only saw him once. He came to the house late one night, after Hope was asleep. Thomas talked to him on the porch for almost an hour. When he came back inside, he looked different, scared. What did the man look like? So tall, expensive coat. He had this smile that didn't reach his eyes. She shuddered. I asked Thomas who he was. He said just someone from work and changed the subject. But he started sleeping with his service weapon after that. Daniel's stomach dropped. Did this man have light blue eyes? Sarah looked up sharply. I don't remember. It was dark. Why? Because I think I know who killed your husband. And I think that same man tried to kill the officer Hope saved yesterday. Sarah's face crumpled. Oh God. Oh my God. Listen to me. We don't have much time. The people behind this, they know Hope saw the attacker's face. They know she can identify him. That makes her a target. We have to run. We have to get out of here. No, running won't help. These people have resources, connections. If we run, they'll find you. Our only chance is to expose them first. How? I don't know yet, but I'm going to figure it out. In the meantime, you and Hope stay here. Don't go outside. Don't answer the door for anyone except me. Can you do that? Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'll do whatever it takes to protect my daughter. Good. I'll be back as soon as I can. Daniel was halfway to the door when Hope's voice stopped him. Lieutenant Reyes. He turned. She was standing in the living room doorway, Whisper at her side, her small face creased with worry. You're going to find the bad man, aren't you? Daniel knelt to her level. Yes, I am. Will you be careful? I'll be very careful. Promise. He looked into her eyes, those old, wise, impossibly brave eyes, and felt something shift in his chest, something he hadn't felt since Emily died. I promise. Hope crossed the room and wrapped her arms around his neck. The hug was fierce and quick and full of trust he wasn't sure he deserved. "Come back," she whispered. "Please come back." "I will," he said. "I promise." He left before she could see the fear in his eyes. Victor Crane sat in his office watching the morning sun paint gold across the Blackwood Valley mountains. His desk was mahogany imported. His chair was leather custom. Everything around him spoke of wealth, of power, of a man who had clawed his way to the top and intended to stay there. His phone buzzed. He answered without looking. "Report." The officer survived. Eric Vance's voice was flat, emotionless. "He's in protective custody at the hospital. We can't get to him there." "And the girl?" "We're tracking her. She's staying with Lieutenant Reyes, the same cop who responded to the scene." Victor drummed his fingers on the desk. "Reyes, I know that name. His daughter died in the Helena fire. His wife, too. He's been working cold cases ever since. Obsessive type. Dangerous type." Victor stood and walked to the window. What does he know? We're not sure yet, but Webb talked to him this morning, alone, behind closed doors. Victor's jaw tightened. Webb kept copies, didn't he? Most likely. We searched his apartment, found nothing. But he's smart. He would have hidden them somewhere we wouldn't think to look. Then we need to find them before he tells Reyes where they are. There's a complication. The girl, she saw my face. If she talks, then make sure she doesn't talk. Silence on the line. "Sir, she's 7 years old." "I'm aware of her age. I'm also aware that a 7-year-old witness can put you in prison for the rest of your life. Can you afford that, Eric? Can you afford to spend your remaining years in a cell because you got soft over a child?" More silence. Then, "What do you want me to do?" "Eliminate the loose ends, all of them. Webb, Reyes, the mother, the girl. Make it look like an accident, a tragic house fire, perhaps. After all, we both know how unpredictable fire can be. And the evidence, it burns with them." Victor ended the call and returned to his chair. He steepled his fingers, watching the morning light creep across his desk. Loose ends. That's all they were. Obstacles to be removed. Inconveniences to be erased. He'd built an empire on burned land and buried secrets. He wasn't about to let a little girl tear it down. The afternoon brought shadows. Daniel spent hours chasing leads that went nowhere. Deputy Warren had called in sick. The Forest Service official Marcus mentioned Henderson was on extended leave. Every thread he pulled seemed to dissolve in his hands. He was sitting in his patrol car, head in his hands, when his phone rang. "Reyes?" "Lieutenant, this is Sergeant Keller at the vet clinic. We've got a situation with the K9. Daniel's chest tightened. "Shadow, what's wrong?" "Nothing wrong exactly. He's recovered well from surgery. But he won't respond to any handlers. Won't eat. Won't follow commands. He just sits in his kennel and stares at the door." "What do you want me to do about it?" "We think he's waiting for someone. The little girl who saved him, Hope Miller. He responds every time someone says her name. Perks right up, starts wagging, looks around like he expects to see her." Daniel closed his eyes. Of course. The bond formed in fire, sealed in blood. Shadow had chosen his person. "I'll bring her in tomorrow morning." "Thank you, Lieutenant. This dog has a distinguished service record. It would break everyone's heart to see him give up." Daniel hung up and stared at the phone. Give up. He knew what that felt like. After Emily, after his wife, there were days he wanted to give up too. Days when the grief felt so heavy he could barely breathe. Hope had pulled him back from that edge, whether she knew it or not. He started the car and headed home. The cabin was dark when he arrived. Daniel's heart stopped. He had left strict instructions. Stay inside. Keep the lights on. Don't answer the door. Why were the lights off? He drew his weapon and approached slowly, every sense on high alert. The front door was ajar. That was wrong. Sarah would never leave it open. "Sarah," he called out. "Hope." Silence. He pushed through the door, weapon raised, sweeping the room with practiced efficiency. Living room, clear. Kitchen, clear. Hallway. A small sound. A whimper. He spun toward it, heart-hammering, and found them huddled in the bathroom. Sarah had her arms wrapped around Hope. Both of them were crying. "What happened?" Daniel demanded. "Are you hurt?" Sarah shook her head, but her face was ashen. "They came, while you were gone. 2 men in a black SUV. They didn't come to the cabin, but they drove past. Slowly, like they were looking for something." "Did they see you?" "I don't think so. We hid when we heard the engine, but Daniel..." Her voice cracked. "They'll come back. I know they will." Daniel holstered his weapon and crouched beside them. "You're safe now. I'm here." "For how long?" Sarah's eyes were wild with fear. "You can't be here every minute, and those men, they're not going to stop." "I know." Daniel pulled out his phone. "That's why I'm calling for backup." "Who?" "You said you don't know who to trust." "I trust Marcus, and I trust the truth." He dialed. "There's one more person who needs to know what's happening. Someone with the power to do something about it." The phone rang. Once, twice. A gruff voice answered. "Sheriff's Department." "What do you need, Reyes?" "Sheriff Ortiz. I need to meet with you tonight, privately. I have evidence of a conspiracy that goes all the way to the top of this county." Silence. Then, "That's a hell of a claim." "I can back it up, but we need to move fast. Lives are in danger." Another pause. "My office, 9 p.m. Come alone." "I'll be there." Daniel hung up and looked at Sarah. "This ends tonight, one way or another." Hope tugged at his sleeve. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. "Lieutenant Reyes." "Yes, sweetheart." "The bad man, the one with the ice eyes, he's going to try to kill us, isn't he?" Daniel couldn't lie to her. Not to this child who had stared down fire and won. "He's going to try," he said. "Are you going to stop him?" "Yes." "Promise." For the second time that day, Daniel looked into Hope's eyes and made a vow he intended to keep. "I promise." But promises were fragile things, and the night was just beginning. At 8:47 p.m., Daniel kissed Hope's forehead and told her to be brave. At 8:52 p.m., he hugged Sarah and told her to keep the doors locked. At 9:00 p.m. sharp, he walked into Sheriff Ortiz's office and found Victor Crane sitting behind the desk. Daniel's hand went to his weapon. "What is this?" Victor smiled, that cold, dead smile that never reached his eyes. "Relax, Lieutenant. I'm just here to talk." "Where's the sheriff?" "Sheriff Ortiz sends his regrets. He was called away on urgent business." Victor gestured to a chair. "Sit, please." Daniel didn't sit. His eyes swept the room. One door, one window. 2 men in expensive suits flanking Victor's security, no doubt. One of them had ice blue eyes. Eric Vance, the man who had tried to burn Marcus alive. "You know," Victor said conversationally, "I've always admired your dedication, Lieutenant. 28 years on the force. A spotless record. The tragic loss of your family." He shook his head. "Most men would have broken, but not you. You kept going." "What do you want, Crane?" "I want us to understand each other." Victor stood and walked around the desk. "You think you've stumbled onto something. Evidence of crimes. Corruption at the highest levels. Very dramatic. I know what you did. The fires. The land grabs. Thomas Miller." Victor's smile flickered. "Ah, the firefighter. Yes, that was unfortunate. He simply couldn't see the bigger picture. You murdered him." "I removed an obstacle. There's a difference." Victor stopped directly in front of Daniel. "I'm giving you a chance I didn't give him. Walk away. Take the girl and her mother and disappear. Start a new life somewhere far from here. I'll even provide resources to help you settle. And if I refuse," Victor's eyes went flat, "then you burn, all of you, and no one will ever know the truth." Daniel's grip tightened on his weapon. He could draw. He could fire. He could end this right now. But there were 2 guns pointed at his back, and Sarah and Hope were alone at the cabin. "Clock's ticking, Lieutenant. What's it going to be?" Daniel stared into the eyes of the man who had destroyed so many lives, who had murdered Hope's father, who would kill a child to protect his fortune, and he made his choice. "I'll take your offer, but I need time to arrange things." Victor's smile returned. "Of course, 48 hours. After that, my patience expires." He extended his hand. "Do we have a deal?" Daniel shook it. The touch made his skin crawl. 48 hours. "Excellent. Eric will escort you out." Daniel walked toward the door. Eric Vance fell into step beside him, close enough that Daniel could smell his cologne. "The girl," Vance murmured. "Does she remember my face?" Daniel didn't answer. "Doesn't matter," Vance continued. "In 48 hours, it won't matter at all." They reached the parking lot. Daniel climbed into his car without looking back. His hands were shaking. 48 hours. That was all the time he had to take down the most powerful man in Blackwood Valley. He drove toward the cabin, mind racing, heart pounding. He didn't notice the black SUV following 3 cars behind. The cabin was burning when he arrived. Daniel saw the glow from half a mile away, orange and red dancing against the night sky, smoke billowing upward like a funeral pyre. No, 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 no. He floored the accelerator. The car fishtailed on gravel as he skidded into the driveway. Flames engulfed the structure. The roof had already collapsed on one side, windows shattered from the heat. Sarah Hope. He ran toward the inferno, but the heat drove him back. The fire was everywhere, too fast, too organized. Deliberate. Gasoline. They'd used gasoline. Hope. A sound, faint, coming from the tree line behind the cabin. Daniel sprinted toward it, crashing through brush, following the sound with desperate hope. He found them in a shallow gully. Sarah was on her knees, clutching Hope. Both were covered in soot. Both were crying. Both were alive. "Oh, thank God!" Daniel dropped beside them, pulling them both into his arms. "How did you get out?" "Whisper," Hope sobbed. "She started barking before they came. We ran into the woods. We hid." Sarah was shaking uncontrollably. "They poured something on the walls. We could hear them laughing. They said, what did they say?" "They said this was a warning." Sarah's eyes met his. "They said you had 48 hours to decide." Daniel's blood ran cold. They weren't trying to kill them. Not yet. This was intimidation. A demonstration of power. Victor Crane wanted Daniel to know exactly how helpless he was. "We can't stay here," Daniel said. "We have to move. Now." "Where?" Sarah cried. "Where can we go that they won't find us?" Daniel looked at the burning cabin. At the ashes of his past. At the 2 people who had somehow become his present. And he made a decision. "I know a place," he said. "Somewhere they won't think to look." He lifted Hope into his arms. She wrapped herself around him, small and trembling, and utterly trusting. "It's going to be okay," he promised. "I'm going to fix this." Behind them, the cabin collapsed in a shower of sparks. And somewhere in the darkness, Victor Crane received a text message. Warning delivered. Awaiting further instructions. He read it, smiled, and deleted it. 47 hours remained. 46 hours remained when Daniel pulled into the parking lot of St. Michael's Church. The old stone building sat on the edge of town, half forgotten by a congregation that had dwindled over the years. But Daniel knew the pastor, Father Miguel Cortez, a man who had buried his wife and daughter 3 years ago, who had held Daniel's hand at the funeral and promised that God still had plans for him. Father Cortez was waiting at the side door when they arrived. "Daniel." The old priest's voice was gentle but worried. "When you called, I didn't expect—" "I know, I'm sorry. I wouldn't ask if I had anywhere else." Father Cortez looked past him to the car where Sarah was lifting a sleeping Hope from the back seat. His eyes softened. "Bring them inside. The rectory basement has beds. It's not much, but it's warm." "Thank you, Father. I'll explain everything." "You don't need to explain. I can see it in your face." The priest placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Whatever storm you're running from, you're safe here. God's house has weathered worse." Sarah carried Hope down the narrow stairs, Whisper trotting anxiously at her heels. The basement was small but clean. 2 cots, a table, a crucifix on the wall. It smelled like old books and candle wax. Hope stirred as Sarah laid her down. Where are we? Somewhere safe, baby. Go back to sleep. Is Lieutenant Reyes still here? I'm here. Daniel crouched beside the cot. I'm not going anywhere. Promise. Promise. Hope's eyes fluttered closed. Within seconds, her breathing deepened into sleep. Sarah pulled Daniel aside, her voice barely a whisper. How long can we stay here? Long enough for me to figure out our next move. And what is our next move? They burned your cabin, Daniel. They know where you live, where you work, probably every place you've ever been. How do we fight people like that? With the truth. Marcus has evidence, copies of everything. Bank records, property transfers, proof of what Crane has been doing for years. If I can get that evidence to the right people. Who you said the sheriff is compromised? Who else is there? Daniel rubbed his face with both hands. I don't know yet, but I'll find someone. The state attorney general, the FBI, someone outside Crane's reach. And if there isn't anyone, there has to be. Sarah's eyes glistened with tears she refused to let fall. I can't lose her, Daniel. She's all I have left. If anything happens to her, nothing is going to happen to her. I won't let it. You can't make that promise. I already did. Daniel's voice hardened with a conviction he hadn't felt in years. I've lost one daughter. I'm not losing another. Sarah stared at him. Something shifted in her expression. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. Another daughter. Daniel looked at Hope sleeping peacefully despite everything. She saved my friend's life. She walked into fire without hesitation. She's 7 years old and braver than anyone I've ever known. He swallowed hard. I know she's not mine. I know I have no right to feel this way. But when I look at her, I see Emily. I see the girl my daughter might have become. Sarah reached out and touched his arm. Emily would have been lucky to have a father like you. The words cracked something open inside him, something he'd kept sealed shut since the day he buried his family. Get some rest, he said quietly. I need to make some calls. He climbed the stairs before she could see his tears. The night crawled by in fragments of fear and planning. Daniel used the church's landline to contact Marcus, keeping his personal cell turned off in case Crane was tracking it. The conversation was brief but critical. The evidence, Daniel said. Where is it? My grandmother's cabin, up near Miller Ridge. There's a loose floorboard in the kitchen under the table. I hid everything there 2 weeks ago. Miller Ridge? That's an hour north. I know, but it's isolated. No one would think to look there. Marcus paused. Daniel, be careful. If Crane finds out you're going after the evidence. He won't find out. Rest. Heal. I'll handle this. I should be there. I should be helping. You are helping, by staying alive. Daniel hung up and stared at the map Father Cortez had given him. Miller Ridge was remote, accessible only by a single dirt road that wound through dense forest. Easy to get lost, easy to disappear. Perfect. He would go at first light, get the evidence, come back, and then, God willing, end this nightmare once and for all. But first he needed sleep. Just a few hours. Just enough to keep functioning. He found an empty pew and stretched out using his jacket as a pillow. The hard wood pressed against his spine. The silence pressed against his mind. 44 hours remained. Hope woke before dawn. She lay in the dark listening to her mother's breathing, feeling whispers warmth against her legs. The ceiling was unfamiliar. The smells were wrong. For a moment she didn't know where she was. Then she remembered. The fire. The cabin. Running through the woods with Mama's hand gripping hers. The men's laughter echoing through the trees. She shivered and pulled the blanket tighter. Can't sleep either. Hope turned. Daniel was sitting on the stairs watching her in the dim light filtering through a small window. Bad dreams, she admitted. Yeah, me too. She sat up slowly, careful not to wake her mother. What do you dream about, ya mom? Fire mostly. And my daughter. The one who died? Yes. Do you dream about saving her? Daniel's throat tightened. Sometimes, but I always wake up before I can. Hope climbed out of bed and padded across the cold floor. She sat on the bottom step close enough to touch him. I dream about my daddy, she said. He's always calling for me, telling me to run, but I can't move. My feet are stuck, and the fire keeps getting closer. That sounds terrifying. It is. She hugged her knees to her chest. Do you think the bad dreams ever stop? Daniel thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't think they stop, he said finally. But I think they get quieter. The more good things we do, the more they fade into the background, like static on a radio. What good things? Like saving people. Like being brave when you're scared. Like protecting the ones you love. Hope considered this. Is that why you're helping us to make the bad dreams quieter? Partly. Daniel smiled faintly. But mostly because it's the right thing to do. Your father would have done the same for my family if the situations were reversed. You didn't know my daddy. I know he raised you. That tells me everything I need to know. Hope's eyes filled with tears. But she didn't cry. She just leaned against Daniel's shoulder and stayed there small and warm and trusting. Lieutenant Reyes. You can call me Daniel. Daniel. When this is over, can we still see you, me and Mama? Of course. And Shadow. Can I see Shadow? Absolutely. In fact, I was thinking Shadow needs someone special to take care of him. Someone brave. Someone who already saved his life once. Hope's eyes widened. You mean me? I mean you. If you want him. For the first time since the cabin burned, Hope smiled. A real smile. Bright and full of hope. I want him. I want him more than anything. Daniel ruffled her hair. Then he's yours. As soon as this is over. Promise. Promise. They sat together in the darkness, waiting for the sun to rise. Dawn brought decisions. Daniel gathered Sarah and Hope in the small basement kitchen. Father Cortez had left coffee and bread along with a note promising prayers. The old priest had his own services to prepare for, but he'd made it clear they could stay as long as needed. I have to go somewhere, Daniel said. It's about an hour away. I'll be back before noon. Sarah's face tightened. Where? Miller Ridge. Marcus hid the evidence there. Without it, we have nothing. Let me come with you. No, it's too dangerous. If something happens to me, Hope needs you here. And if something happens to you, what do we do then? Daniel handed her a piece of paper. This is a number for an FBI field office in Denver. A friend of mine works there, Agent Ramirez. If I'm not back by 3 o'clock, you call that number. You tell him everything. Names, dates, all of it. Sarah took the paper with trembling hands. You're scaring me. I'm being realistic. Crane has resources, power, but he doesn't own the FBI. If we can get this evidence into federal hands, it's over. He can't touch us. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, but it's possible. Daniel squeezed her shoulder. I need you to be strong. For Hope. Sarah looked at her daughter, who was feeding crumbs of bread, to whisper. I'll be strong. Good. Keep the doors locked. Don't let anyone in except Father Cortez. And if anyone comes asking questions, we were never here. Exactly. Daniel crossed to Hope and knelt in front of her. I have to go do something important, but I'll be back soon. To get the evidence. He shouldn't have been surprised that she'd been listening. This child missed nothing. Yes, to get the evidence. Be careful. The bad man has helpers everywhere. I know. That's why I need you to protect your mother while I'm gone. Can you do that? Hope straightened her small jaw setting with determination. I'll protect her. That's my girl. He kissed the top of her head and walked up the stairs without looking back. If he looked back, he might not leave. The drive to Miller Ridge was quiet. Daniel kept his window cracked, letting the cold mountain air clear his head. The road wound through dense forest, climbing steadily toward the snow line. No other cars, no signs of life, just endless trees and the gray morning sky. Marcus's grandmother's cabin appeared around a final bend, a small wooden structure that looked like it hadn't been used in years. The windows were dark. The porch sagged. Nature was slowly reclaiming the property. Daniel parked and approached carefully, hand on his weapon. He circled the structure, once checking for signs of disturbance. Nothing. The place was untouched. He climbed the porch steps and tried the door. Unlocked. Inside, the cabin smelled like dust and decay. Furniture covered in sheets. Cobwebs in the corners. A fireplace full of cold ash. The kitchen was in the back. Daniel found the table Marcus had described and dropped to his knees. The floorboards creaked as he felt along their edges. There. A loose board. He pried it up with his pocket knife. Underneath, wrapped in a plastic bag, was a manila envelope thick with documents. Daniel pulled it out and opened it. Bank statements, property deeds, photographs, a USB drive. Everything Marcus had promised. And then he saw the last page. A single sheet of paper with a list of names, payments received, services rendered. His blood turned to ice. Sheriff Ortiz, Deputy Warren, Forest Service Director Henderson, Mayor Thompson, Judge Patricia Wells. Half the county government was on Victor Crane's payroll. My God, Daniel breathed. It's everyone. A board creaked behind him. Daniel spun, drawing his weapon. Eric Vance stood in the kitchen doorway, a pistol leveled at Daniel's chest. His ice blue eyes were calm, empty, like looking into the face of a dead man. Good morning, Lieutenant. I had a feeling you'd come here. How did you find me? Mr. Crane has friends in many places, including the phone company that handles Father Cortez's landline. Vance smiled thinly. Did you really think a single phone call would go unnoticed? Daniel's mind raced. He'd been careless, stupid, and now the evidence won't help you, Vance continued. Even if you somehow escape, who would you take it to? The sheriff? The mayor? They're all ours. The FBI isn't yours. No, but you'll never reach them. Vance raised his weapon. Put your gun down, slowly. Daniel had no choice. He bent and placed his gun on the floor. The envelope, too. He slid it across the floor toward Vance. Good. Now Mr. Crane would like me to deliver a message. The 48 hours. Consider them reduced to 12. Take the girl and her mother. Disappear. If you're still in Blackwood Valley by sunset tomorrow, everyone you care about dies. I'll go. Just leave them alone. That depends entirely on you. Vance picked up the envelope without taking his eyes off Daniel. A car will be waiting for you at the church. It will take you to Denver. From there, you're on your own. And if I refuse... Vance's smile didn't waver. Then I visit the church tonight. The priest is old. He wouldn't put up much of a fight. And the little girl... He paused. Well, children are fragile. Rage exploded in Daniel's chest. He lunged forward. Vance sidestepped easily and cracked the butt of his pistol against Daniel's temple. The world went white with pain. Daniel hit the floor hard, vision swimming. 12 hours, Lieutenant. Don't waste them. Footsteps receded. A car engine started outside. By the time Daniel pulled himself upright, Vance was gone. And so was the evidence. Hope felt something wrong before it happened. She was sitting in the church basement drawing pictures with a pencil Father Cortez had given her. Whisper lay at her feet drowsing. Sarah was reading a Bible she'd found on the shelf, her lips moving silently over words she didn't quite believe anymore. Then Whisper's head snapped up. A growl rumbled deep in the dog's throat. Whisper, what is it? The growl intensified. Whisper rose to her feet, Hackle's bristling eyes fixed on the basement stairs. Sarah lowered the Bible. Hope, come here. What's wrong? Just come here, now. Hope crossed the room and pressed against her mother's side. Whisper positioned herself between them and the stairs, teeth bared. Footsteps above. Heavy. Multiple. Then a voice muffled but audible through the floorboards. Search the building. They're here somewhere. Sarah's hand clamped over Hope's mouth before the girl could scream. She pulled her daughter toward the far corner of the basement, toward a narrow door Hope hadn't noticed before. There's a cellar, Sarah breathed. Father Cortez showed me. It leads outside. What about Whisper? She'll follow. Come on. Sarah eased the door open. A tunnel stretched into darkness, an old coal chute long abandoned, barely wide enough for an adult to squeeze through. Go. Crawl. Don't stop until you see daylight. Mama, go. Hope dropped to her hands and knees and crawled. The tunnel was cold and dark and smelled like earth. She could hear Whisper scrambling behind her paws, scraping against stone. Behind them, the basement door crashed open. There, the woman. A scream. Sarah's scream. Mama! Hope tried to turn back, but Whisper was behind her, pushing, forcing her forward. The dog's instincts overrode everything. Protect the child. Get her to safety. No, Whisper, stop. We have to help her. But the tunnel was too narrow to turn around. Hope had no choice but to keep crawling, tears streaming down her face, her mother's screams echoing behind her. When she finally emerged into daylight, she was alone. Whisper burst out after her, barking, frantically circling as if trying to decide what to do. Hope grabbed the dog's collar and held on tight. We have to find Daniel, she gasped. He'll know what to do. She ran. Daniel was halfway back to town when his phone rang. He'd found a working payphone at a gas station called Father Cortez and gotten no answer. That silence had driven him to break every speed limit between Miller Ridge and Blackwood Valley. Now his personal cell, the one he'd kept off for safety, was buzzing in his jacket pocket. He'd turned it on to call Marcus. That was his mistake. He answered. Reyes. Lieutenant? Victor Crane's voice was smooth, amused. I hear you had an exciting morning. Where are they? The woman is with me. She's unharmed for now. The girl unfortunately escaped. My men are searching. Daniel's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. If you hurt either of them, you'll what? Go to the authorities. We both know how that ends. Crane's tone hardened. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to bring me the girl. In exchange, I'll release the mother. A simple trade. I don't have the girl. Then find her. You have until midnight. If the girl isn't delivered to the old Firewatch station on Blackwood Ridge by then, Mrs. Miller dies. And I promise you, it won't be quick. You're insane. I'm practical. The girl is a witness. She can identify Eric. As long as she's alive, I have a problem. Solve my problem, Lieutenant, and we can all walk away from this. And if I refuse, then you'll have another funeral to plan, and this time it'll be your fault. The line went dead. Daniel pulled over to the side of the road. His hands were shaking. His chest felt like it was being crushed. Sarah was captured. Hope was missing. The evidence was gone. And the most powerful man in the county wanted a 7-year-old girl delivered to him like a package. For a long moment, Daniel just sat there, drowning in despair. Then his phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Daniel. It's me. Hope. I found a phone. I'm at the old ranger station near Pine Creek. Please come. I'm scared. Whisper is hurt. Daniel's heart lurched. He threw the car into gear and floored it. Hope was huddled behind the abandoned ranger station when Daniel arrived. Whisper lay at her feet, panting, a deep gash on her hind leg. Daniel! Hope ran to him and threw her arms around his waist. They took Mama. They took her. I know. I know, sweetheart. He held her tight. Are you hurt? No, but Whisper cut her leg on the fence when we were running. She can't walk right. Daniel knelt and examined the dog. The wound was deep but clean. It needed stitches, but it wasn't life-threatening. She's going to be okay, but we need to get you somewhere safe. Where? The church isn't safe anymore. Your cabin burned. Where can we go? Daniel didn't have an answer. Every refuge had been compromised. Every ally was suspect. They were running out of options. Then Hope said something that changed everything. I know where to find evidence. Daniel stared at her. What? When I was hiding in the tunnel, I heard the men talking. One of them said something about the bunker. He said all the records were kept there in case something happened to the main copies. What bunker where? I don't know, but he said it was near the old Crane property, the one by the lake. Daniel's mind raced. The old Crane property. Victor's father had owned a hunting lodge near Blackwood Lake before he died. It had been abandoned for years. Hope, are you sure about this? I'm sure. He said bunker by the lake. I remember. A bunker. Backup records. If Hope was right, there might be another copy of everything Marcus had compiled. Evidence that Vance hadn't destroyed. Evidence that could bring Victor Crane down. Hope, I need you to stay here. I'll come back. No. Hope. No. Her small fists clenched. Everyone keeps leaving me. Daddy left. Mama's gone. I'm not staying here alone. I'm coming with you. It's too dangerous. I don't care. Tears streamed down her face. She's my mama, and I'm the one who heard about the bunker. You need me. You need me to help. Daniel looked at this child, this fierce, broken, impossibly brave child, who had already been through more than anyone should endure. He should refuse. He should protect her. He should do everything in his power to keep her away from danger. But she was right. He needed her. And more than that, she needed to fight. She needed to do something. Helplessness would destroy her. Okay, he said finally. You can come, but you stay behind me. You do exactly what I say. And if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments. Understood? Understood. Good. He lifted Whisper carefully into the car. Let's go find that bunker. The drive to Blackwood Lake took 40 minutes. Daniel kept to back roads, avoiding main thoroughfares where Crane's people might be watching. Hope sat in the passenger seat, pale, but determined, her hand resting on Whisper's head. Daniel, yeah, what if we don't find anything? Then we'll think of something else. What if Mama... Her voice broke. What if they hurt her? Daniel reached over and squeezed her hand. Your mother is strong. She survived 8 months in the forest. She survived your father's death. She survived losing everything. She's not going to give up now. But what if... Hope. He waited until she looked at him. I'm going to get her back. I promise you. Whatever it takes. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay. I believe you. They drove the rest of the way in silence. The old Crane Lodge appeared through the trees like a ghost from another era. It was larger than Daniel expected, a sprawling wooden structure with a collapsed porch and shattered windows. Vines climbed the walls. The forest was slowly swallowing it whole. Daniel parked behind a screen of bushes and killed the engine. Stay here with Whisper. I'm going to check it out. But no arguments. Remember. Hope's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Daniel approached the lodge carefully, weapon drawn. The front door hung off its hinges. Inside, everything was decay and darkness. He searched the main floor first. Nothing. Then the basement. Empty. Where was the bunker? He circled the property looking for anything unusual. A hidden entrance, a cellar door, anything. That's when he saw it. Behind the lodge, half hidden by overgrown bushes, was a storm cellar. The doors were newer than the rest of the structure, steel instead of wood with a heavy padlock. Daniel shot the lock off. The stairs led down into darkness. He pulled out his flashlight and descended. What he found made his breath catch. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with boxes. Filing cabinets stood in neat rows. A desk held a computer and multiple hard drives. This wasn't just a bunker. It was an archive. Daniel started opening boxes, documents, photographs, financial records going back 20 years, evidence of every crime Victor Crane had ever committed. This was it. The mother lode. He grabbed as much as he could carry and turned toward the stairs. A shadow blocked the light. Hello, Lieutenant. Eric Vance descended slowly, his pistol aimed at Daniel's chest. You just don't give up, do you? Daniel's heart sank. How? We put a tracker on your car while you were in Miller Ridge. Did you really think we'd let you wander around unsupervised? The evidence will be destroyed, along with you. Vance stepped closer. But first, Mr. Crane wants the girl. Where is she? I don't know. Vance's pistol cracked across Daniel's face. Pain exploded through his skull. Where is she? I don't. Another blow. Blood filled Daniel's mouth. Last chance, Lieutenant. Give me the girl or I start removing fingers. Daniel spat blood onto the floor. Go to hell. Vance smiled coldly. Wrong answer. He raised his pistol. A shot rang out, but it didn't come from Vance's gun. The killer stumbled forward, his eyes wide with shock. Blood bloomed on his shoulder. His pistol clattered to the floor. Hope stood at the top of the stairs, Daniel's backup revolver, the one he kept under his car seat, clutched in both hands. Her arms were shaking. Her face was white, but her aim had been true. Get away from him, she said, her voice trembling but fierce. Vance turned, clutching his wounded shoulder. You little... I said get away! She fired again. The bullet went wide, but it was enough. Vance lunged for the stairs, shoving past Hope, disappearing into the forest. Daniel pulled himself upright. Hope! Hope, are you okay? She dropped the gun. Her whole body was shaking. I shot him. I shot a person. Daniel gathered her into his arms. You saved my life. Do you hear me? You saved my life. I was so scared, but I couldn't let him. I know. He held her tight. You did the right thing. You were so brave. Is he dead? No. You hit his shoulder. He'll survive. Daniel pulled back and looked into her eyes. But you stopped him. You protected me, just like I knew you would. Hope's tears spilled over. But somewhere beneath the fear and shock, something else flickered. Pride. She had fought back, and she had won. Daniel gathered the documents and led her up the stairs. The forest was empty. Vance had fled, leaving nothing but a trail of blood. We have what we need, Daniel said. Now we end this. Hope wiped her eyes. And Mama, we're going to get her back. He looked at the sky. The sun was already past its peak. But first we need to make one more stop. Where? To see an old friend. One Victor Crane can't buy. They drove toward the vet clinic, where a wounded canine named Shadow was waiting for the girl who had saved his life. And somewhere on Blackwood Ridge, Sarah Miller sat bound in darkness, praying her daughter would survive. Midnight was coming. Shadow knew Hope before she entered the clinic. The German shepherd's ears shot forward the moment the door opened. His tail thumped against the kennel floor. A whine escaped his throat, desperate, hopeful, aching with recognition. Easy boy, the veterinary tech said. You're going to hurt yourself. But Shadow wasn't listening. His eyes were locked on the small figure crossing the room toward him. Hope dropped to her knees in front of the kennel. Shadow. The dog pressed his nose through the bars, sniffing her face, her hands, her hair. His whole body trembled with joy. I came back, Hope whispered. I promised I would. She looked up at Daniel. Can you open it? Please. Daniel nodded to the tech. The kennel door swung open. Shadow burst out and nearly knocked Hope over. He licked her face, her ears, her neck. His tail wagged so hard his entire body shook. Hope laughed a real laugh, bright and clear despite everything, and wrapped her arms around his neck. I missed you too, she said. I missed you so much. Daniel watched them, his chest tight. This was what love looked like. Pure, unconditional, forged in fire and sealed in blood. The tech cleared her throat. Lieutenant Reyes, there's a phone call for you. A man named Marcus Webb. Daniel's jaw tightened. I'll take it in the back. Marcus's voice was strained when Daniel picked up the receiver. I heard what happened. The church. Sarah. How did you hear? Father Cortez called me. He's safe but shaken. Daniel, I'm so sorry. If I had known... It's not your fault. None of this is your fault. Where's the girl? Daniel glanced through the doorway at Hope still clinging to Shadow. She's with me. She's safe. For now. And Sarah, Crane has her. He wants to trade Hope for her freedom. That's insane. You can't... I know what I can't do. Daniel's voice hardened. But I found something. Marcus. The bunker. Crane's backup archive. I have enough evidence to bury him 10 times over. Silence. Then, where is it now? In my car, but it won't matter if I can't get it to someone who can actually use it. The FBI agent you mentioned, Ramirez. I can't reach him in time. Crane's deadline is midnight. That's less than 6 hours away. Then we need another plan. Marcus paused. Daniel, let me help. I know I'm hurt. I know I'm supposed to be resting, but this is my fight too. I started this. I need to finish it. You can barely walk. I can still shoot. Daniel rubbed his face with his free hand. Every instinct told him to refuse, to protect Marcus the way he was trying to protect Hope, to handle this alone. But he wasn't alone anymore. And maybe that was the point. Blackwood Ridge, he said finally. The old Firewatch station. That's where Crane wants the exchange. I know the place. I can be there in 2 hours. Marcus, I'm coming, Daniel. You can't stop me. Daniel closed his eyes. Fine, but you stay out of sight until I give the signal. If this goes wrong, it won't. If it does, you get Hope out. You take her and you run. Promise me. A long pause. I promise. Daniel hung up and returned to the main room. Hope was sitting on the floor now, Shadow's head in her lap. Whisper curled at her side. 2 dogs, 1 girl. A family forged from wreckage. We need to go, Daniel said softly. Hope looked up. Her eyes were clear, determined. To get Mama? Yes. I'm ready. Hope listened to me carefully. What we're about to do is dangerous. More dangerous than anything you've faced before. I need you to stay hidden, to stay silent, to do exactly what I say, no matter what happens. I understand. Do you? Because if something goes wrong, then I run. Hope stood her small jaw set. You told me. I remember. Daniel knelt to her level. I'm going to do everything in my power to bring your mother back. But I need to know you'll be safe. I can't fight if I'm worried about you. You don't have to worry about me. Hope placed her hand on Shadow's head. I have protection. Shadow's ears perked up. His eyes met Daniel's intelligent, loyal, ready. Daniel allowed himself a small smile. Yeah, I guess you do. They left the clinic as the sun began its descent toward the mountains. 6 hours until midnight. The drive to Blackwood Ridge took longer than expected. Daniel avoided the main roads, taking winding back routes through forest and farmland. He kept checking his mirrors, watching for any sign of pursuit. So far, nothing. Hope sat in the back seat with Shadow and Whisper. She'd been quiet since they left the clinic, not the scared silence of before, but something deeper, more focused. Daniel. Yeah. The man who killed my daddy. Is he going to be there tonight? Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. Victor Crane. Yes, he'll be there. Good. The word was cold, hard. It didn't sound like it came from a 7-year-old. Hope whatever happens tonight, I need you to let me handle Crane. Don't try to confront him. Don't try to... I know what you're going to say. Her voice was steady. You're going to say revenge won't bring Daddy back, that it'll only make things worse. That's exactly what I was going to say. I know. Hope was quiet for a moment. But I don't want revenge. I just want him to stop. I want him to stop hurting people. Is that wrong? No, that's not wrong at all. Then I won't do anything stupid, I promise. She paused. But if he tries to hurt you or Mama, I'm not going to just stand there. I already shot one bad man today. I can do it again. Daniel didn't know how to respond. This child had been forced to grow up too fast, to make decisions no 7-year-old should ever face. And yet in her own way, she was handling it better than most adults would. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, he said finally. Yeah. Hope's hand tightened on Shadow's collar. Let's hope. They reached the base of Blackwood Ridge as the sun touched the mountain tops. Daniel parked the car in a hidden turnout concealed by thick brush. From here, the Firewatch station was a 20-minute hike up a narrow trail. "This is as far as the car goes," he said. "We walk from here." Hope climbed out Shadow and Whisper at her heels. Daniel opened the trunk and retrieved his backup weapons, a shotgun, his service pistol, extra ammunition. He also grabbed the envelope full of evidence and tucked it inside his jacket. "Hope, I need you to listen very carefully. There's a cave about halfway up the trail. Do you remember the stories I told you about Emily, how we used to explore these mountains together?" Hope nodded. "That cave was our special place. Emily's and mine. No one else knows about it except me. I want you to wait there with the dogs. Don't come out until I come back for you. But no arguments. Not this time." Daniel's voice was firm. "If something happens to me, Marcus will come for you. He knows where the cave is. You wait there and you trust no one else. Understand?" Hope's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry. "What if Marcus doesn't come?" "Then you take the evidence from my jacket and you find a way to Denver. Agent Ramirez, FBI field office. You give him everything and you tell him the whole story. I'm 7 years old. No one will believe me. They'll believe the evidence." Daniel knelt and took her hands. "You're the bravest person I've ever known, Hope Miller. If anyone can do this, it's you." "I don't want to be brave anymore." Her voice cracked. "I just want my mama back." "I know, and you're going to have her back. Tonight, I swear to you." He hugged her tighter than he'd hugged anyone since Emily. Then he stood and started up the trail. "Daniel." He turned. "I love you," Hope said quietly. "Like a daddy. Is that okay?" Daniel's throat closed around words he couldn't speak. He nodded once sharply and continued walking. He didn't trust his voice. The fire watch station appeared through the trees like a skeleton against the darkening sky. It was an old wooden structure built decades ago and abandoned when newer facilities were constructed closer to town. The platform tilted at a dangerous angle. The railings were rusted, the stairs creaked with every step, and standing at the base waiting was Victor Crane. He wasn't alone. 4 men flanked him, hired muscle probably. Eric Vance was notably absent. Still nursing the bullet wound Hope had given him, no doubt. Daniel approached slowly, hands visible, shotgun slung across his back. "Lieutenant Reyes," Crane called out. "I was beginning to think you'd run." "Where's Sarah?" Crane smiled. "All business. I respect that." He gestured to one of his men. "Bring her." A moment later, Sarah was dragged from behind the station. Her hands were bound. A gag covered her mouth. Bruises darkened one side of her face, but she was alive. "Sarah." Daniel took a step forward. Ah. Crane raised a hand. "Not so fast. Where's the girl?" "Safe. Somewhere you'll never find her." "That wasn't the deal, Lieutenant. The girl for the mother. That was the arrangement." "The arrangement changed when you beat a defenseless woman." Daniel's voice was ice. "Here's the new deal. You let Sarah go. Right now. And in exchange, I don't blow your head off." Crane laughed. "You're outnumbered 4-1. You really think you can shoot your way out of this? I don't need to shoot my way out. I just need to shoot you." "Big words. But I don't think you'll follow through. Do you know why?" Crane stepped closer. "Because you're a good man, Lieutenant. You have a conscience. You believe in rules and justice and doing the right thing. Men like you don't execute unarmed citizens." "You're not unarmed, and you're not a citizen. You're a murderer." Strong accusations. "Do you have proof?" Daniel pulled the envelope from his jacket and held it up. 20 years of proof. Bank records, property deeds, payroll statements. Everything you've ever done documented and ready for federal prosecution. Crane's smile flickered. "Where did you get that?" "Your bunker. The one you thought no one knew about." Daniel's eyes hardened. "I know everything, Crane. The fires, the land grabs, the officials you've bought. And I know what you did to Thomas Miller." Sarah made a strangled sound behind her gag. "I know you killed him," Daniel continued. "I know you trapped him in that building and let him burn. I know you murdered a hero and called it an accident. You can't prove any of that. Can't I? Daniel pulled out a single photograph. This is you. At the scene, the night of the fire. You're standing with Eric Vance watching the building burn. You're smiling, Crane. You're smiling while a man dies. Crane's face went pale. Where did you? Thomas Miller wasn't stupid. He knew someone was trying to kill him. He set up cameras, hidden cameras. He documented everything just in case. Daniel's voice dropped. He knew he might not survive, but he made sure the truth would. You're bluffing. Am I? Daniel tucked the photograph back into the envelope. I've already sent copies to Agent Ramirez at the FBI field office in Denver. He's probably reading them right now. By morning, federal agents will be crawling all over this valley. Your empire is finished, Crane. The only question is whether you spend the rest of your life in prison or die here tonight. For the first time, genuine fear flickered across Crane's face. Kill him, he said to his men. Kill him now. None of them moved. I said kill him. One of the men, a burly figure with a scar across his jaw, shook his head slowly. You never said nothing about the feds. I signed up for muscle work, not a federal murder rap. I'm paying you. Not enough. The man holstered his weapon. We're done. He turned and walked into the forest. After a moment's hesitation, the other three followed. Crane stood alone. It's over, Daniel said. Let Sarah go. Crane's face twisted with rage. His hand plunged into his jacket and came out holding a pistol. Nothing is over until I say it's over. He aimed at Sarah. Daniel moved without thinking. He threw himself between Crane and Sarah as the gun went off. The bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Pain exploded through his body. He hit the ground hard. Daniel! The scream came from the forest. From the direction of the cave. Hope burst from the trees. Shadow at her side, sprinting toward the station. No! Daniel tried to rise. Hope, run! But she wasn't listening. She was running straight toward the man who had killed her father. Crane's gun swung toward her. Time slowed. Daniel saw everything with terrible clarity. The barrel of the gun, Hope's face, Shadow's bared teeth. He couldn't reach her. He couldn't save her. He was too far away. Then Shadow lunged. The German Shepherd hit Crane with the force of a freight train. His jaws clamped around the man's arm as the gun went off. The shot went wild, ricocheting off the station's metal railings. Crane screamed. He tried to shake the dog off, but Shadow held on, teeth sinking deeper. Hope reached Sarah. Her small fingers tore at the ropes. Mama! Mama, I'm here! Sarah made desperate sounds behind her gag. Hold still, I'm trying. A gunshot. Shadow yelped and released his grip. Blood bloomed on his haunches. Crane stood over the wounded dog, his arm torn and bleeding, his eyes wild with fury. Stupid animal. He raised the gun again. Should have stayed dead the first time. No! Hope grabbed a handful of dirt and threw it directly into Crane's face. He screamed, clawing at his eyes. The gun discharged harmlessly into the ground. Shadow, despite his wound, surged forward and bit down on Crane's ankle. The man toppled backward, crashing into the station's rotted staircase. Daniel finally reached his feet. His shoulders screamed with pain, but he forced himself forward. He grabbed Crane by the collar and slammed him against the wooden railing. It's over, he snarled. You're finished. Crane laughed, a high, hysterical sound. You think this ends anything? You think killing me changes anything? I'm just one man. There are others. There will always be others. Maybe, but not you, not anymore. Daniel drew back his fist. Dad! Hope's voice cut through his rage. He froze. She was standing beside Sarah, who had finally torn free of her gag. Mother and daughter clung to each other, both crying. Don't, Hope said. Please don't. Hope, this man killed your father. I know. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. But if you kill him, you'll be like him. And you're not like him. You're good. Please, Dad. Please let the police handle it. Dad. The word broke through Daniel's fury like sunlight through storm clouds. He looked at Hope, at her tear-stained face, at the trust shining in her eyes despite everything she'd been through. He thought about Emily, about the father he had wanted to be, about the man he had become. Slowly he released his grip on Crane's collar. You're under arrest, he said quietly. for the murder of Thomas Miller, for arson, for kidnapping, for conspiracy, and for everything else you've done to this valley." Crane slumped against the railing. "You can't prove anything." "Watch me." Daniel pulled out his handcuffs, but before he could secure them, a new sound split the air, the crack of breaking wood. The station's railing rotted and weakened, gave way under Crane's weight. He screamed as he fell, arms flailing, tumbling toward the rocks below. Daniel lunged. His hand caught Crane's wrist. The pain in his shoulder exploded into agony, but he held on. "Pull me up!" Crane screamed. "For God's sake, pull me up!" Daniel gritted his teeth. His arm shook. Blood dripped from his wounded shoulder onto Crane's terrified face. "This is what Thomas felt," Daniel said through clenched teeth. "When you left him to burn, this is the fear, the helplessness, the knowledge that no one was coming to save him. I'll tell you everything. Everyone I paid, every fire I set, please." "I already know everything." "Then what do you want? What do you want?" Daniel stared into the eyes of the man who had destroyed so many lives, who had murdered Hope's father, who had tried to kill a 7-year-old girl. He could let go. It would be so easy. One moment of weakness and justice would be served. But that wasn't justice. That was revenge. And revenge wasn't who he was. "I want you to spend the rest of your miserable life in prison," Daniel said. "I want you to wake up every morning knowing that a little girl took down your empire. And I want you to remember this moment, the moment I could have let you die and chose not to." He hauled Crane up with a strength he didn't know he possessed. The man collapsed onto the platform, sobbing broken. Daniel stood over him, breathing hard. "It's done," he said. Then his legs gave out. Hope reached him first. "Daniel, Daniel, no!" She pressed her hands against his wounded shoulder. "You're bleeding. You're bleeding so much." "I'm okay." His voice was weak. "I'm okay, sweetheart." "You're not okay. You need a hospital." Sarah was there now too, her freed hands joining Hope's in pressing against the wound. "Hold on, Daniel. Just hold on. Help is coming." "Help!" As if in answer, sirens split the night. Red and blue lights flickered through the trees below. Voices shouted in the distance. "I called Agent Ramirez," a familiar voice said. Daniel turned his head. Marcus Webb stood at the edge of the platform, leaning heavily on a makeshift cane, his face gray with exhaustion, but set with determination. "Marcus, you came." "I told you I would." Marcus limped forward and knelt beside them. "When I saw Crane's men leaving, I knew something had changed. I made the call. The evidence. Safe. I grabbed the envelope when you went down." Marcus smiled faintly. "Did you really think I'd let you do all the work?" Daniel laughed, a weak, painful sound. "Thank you. Save it. You can buy me a beer when this is over." Federal agents swarmed the platform minutes later. Paramedics rushed to Daniel's side. Crane was hauled away in handcuffs, his face blank with shock. Through it all, Hope never let go of Daniel's hand. "You're going to be okay," she kept saying. "You have to be okay." Daniel squeezed her fingers. "I'm not going anywhere. Promise." "Promise." The stretcher lifted him. The world tilted. Hope's face blurred above him. "I love you, Dad," she whispered. Daniel smiled. "I love you too, sweetheart." Then darkness took him. He woke in a hospital room. The first thing he saw was sunlight, warm golden streaming through a window he didn't recognize. The second thing he saw was Hope. She was asleep in a chair beside his bed, shadow curled at her feet. Her small hand rested on the edge of his mattress, fingers just touching his. Sarah sat in another chair nearby, watching him with exhausted, grateful eyes. "How long?" Daniel's voice was a croak. 12 hours. The bullet nicked an artery. You nearly died on the table." Sarah's voice trembled. "They said if you'd lost any more blood, but I didn't." "No, you didn't." She wiped her eyes. "Daniel, I don't know how to thank you. What you did, what you risked. You don't have to thank me, your family." The word hung in the air. Sarah stared at him. "Family. If you'll have me. Daniel's throat tightened. I know it's sudden. I know we barely know each other, but Hope, she called me Dad, and I felt for the first time since Emily. He couldn't finish. Sarah crossed to his bed and took his hand. She's never called anyone that, not since Thomas. You gave her something I couldn't. You gave her hope. That's her name. I know. Sarah smiled through her tears. I know. Hope stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. When she saw Daniel awake, her whole face transformed. Daniel. She launched herself onto the bed, careful of his bandages, wrapping her arms around him with desperate relief. You're awake. You're okay. I'm okay. He held her as tight as his wounded body would allow. I told you I'd come back. You almost didn't. Almost doesn't count. She pulled back and looked at him with those old, wise, impossibly young eyes. What happens now? Daniel looked at Sarah, at Shadow, who had risen and was resting his chin on the bed, at the sunlight streaming through the window. Now, he said, we go home. We don't have a home. The cabin burned. Our camp burned. Everything burned. Then we build a new one. Daniel took Hope's hand. Together. Hope's eyes filled with tears. Together. Together. She buried her face against his chest, her small body shaking with sobs. But these weren't tears of fear or grief. They were tears of relief, of joy, of finally coming home. Shadow barked once, a happy sound, and Whisper, who had been curled in the corner, came over to join them. Daniel held his new family close. Outside, the sun rose over Blackwood Valley. The fire was out, and hope, real hope, had finally returned. The courtroom was packed. Hope sat in the front row, squeezed between Sarah and Daniel, her small hands gripping theirs so tightly her knuckles had turned white. Shadow lay at her feet, his official therapy dog vest marking him as permitted in the building. Whisper was home. The judge had drawn the line at 2 dogs, but Shadow's presence was enough. Today was the day. After 3 weeks of testimony, evidence review, and legal maneuvering, Victor Crane would finally hear his fate. You okay? Daniel whispered. Hope nodded, but her face was pale. What if they let him go? They won't. But what if... Hope. Daniel squeezed her hand. Look at me. She turned her 2 old eyes toward him. The evidence is overwhelming. The FBI has everything. Bank records, photographs, witness testimony. Crane's own men turned on him to save themselves. There's no way out for him. Not this time. He's rich. Rich people always find a way out. Not always. Not when a 7-year-old girl is braver than all of them combined. Hope managed a small smile. I'm almost 8 now. Almost 8. My mistake. The bailiff's voice cut through the murmur of the crowd. All rise. Everyone stood as Judge Patricia Wells entered the courtroom. She was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. Eyes that had seen everything the evidence contained and hadn't flinched. Be seated. The crowd settled. Hope's grip tightened on Daniel's hand. Mr. Crane, the judge said, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. Please rise. Victor Crane stood. He looked different than he had 3 weeks ago, thinner, paler, the arrogance drained from his face. Prison orange had replaced his tailored suits. His hands, once steady with power, now trembled visibly. The jury has reached a verdict. How do you find the defendant on the charge of murder in the 1st degree? The jury foreman stood. Guilty, Your Honor. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, guilty. On the charge of arson resulting in death, guilty. On the charges of kidnapping, assault, and racketeering, guilty on all counts. Hope's breath caught. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Guilty, she whispered. He's guilty. The judge nodded slowly. Mr. Crane, based on the evidence presented and the jury's findings, this court sentences you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. May God have mercy on your soul. because this court has none to offer." She banged her gavel. It was over. Hope buried her face against Daniel's chest and sobbed. Not from sadness, from relief. From the knowledge that the man who had murdered her father would never hurt anyone again. "It's okay," Daniel murmured, holding her close. "It's okay, sweetheart. Justice is served." Sarah wrapped her arms around both of them, tears streaming down her face. "Thomas," she whispered. "Oh, Thomas. They got him. They finally got him." Shadow pressed against Hope's legs, whining softly, sensing her distress, but also her relief. Across the courtroom, Victor Crane was led away in chains. At the door, he paused and looked back. His eyes found Hope's through the crowd. She didn't look away. For a long moment, they stared at each other. The man who had destroyed her world, and the girl who had brought his crashing down. Then Crane's face crumpled. He looked away first. Hope felt something shift inside her chest. Not forgiveness she wasn't ready for, that might never be ready for that. But something close to closure. The wound would never fully heal, but it would scar over. She would survive. "Let's go home," Daniel said. Home. The word had never sounded so sweet. The weeks that followed were a blur of paperwork and hearings and meetings with social workers who seemed determined to complicate everything. Sarah and Hope had been staying at a rental house paid for by a victim's assistance fund, but it wasn't permanent. Daniel's cabin was gone, burned to ashes by Crane's men. Everything they had known before Sarah's forest camp, Daniel's solitary life, Hope's invisible existence had been destroyed. But from the ashes, something new was growing. The adoption application has been approved, the social worker announced during their final meeting. Pending a home study and final court approval, Lieutenant Reyes will become Hope Miller's legal guardian. Hope's face lit up. "Really? Really?" The social worker smiled, the first genuine smile Hope had seen from her. "Congratulations." "Daniel." Hope launched herself at him, nearly knocking him off his chair. "You're going to be my dad. For real." Daniel caught her laughing despite the tears burning his eyes. "I was always going to be your dad. This just makes it official." Sarah watched them with a complicated expression. Joy for her daughter, grief for her husband, and something else, something that looked like hope. "There's one more thing," the social worker said. "Mrs. Miller, the insurance company, has agreed to settle. Given the new evidence proving your husband's death was murder rather than accident, they're offering full compensation plus damages. The total comes to," she checked her file, $2.3 million. Sarah's face went white. "What? 2.3 million. After legal fees, you'll receive approximately 1.8 million. It should be more than enough to rebuild your life." Sarah's legs gave out. She sank into her chair, shaking. "Mama." Hope pulled away from Daniel, worried. "Mama, are you okay?" "I'm okay, baby." Sarah's voice cracked. "I'm just your father. He took care of us, even now, even after everything. He took care of us." Hope crossed to her mother and wrapped her arms around her. "Daddy always took care of us. He still does." Sarah held her daughter tight and cried, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming weight of finally being safe. The home study happened 2 weeks later. A serious-looking woman named Mrs. Patterson arrived at Daniel's new house, a modest 2-story he'd purchased with his savings, and spent 3 hours examining every corner, asking every question, and watching every interaction between Daniel and Hope. "You've known each other less than 2 months, Mrs. Patterson said, frowning at her clipboard. "That's an unusually short time for an adoption." "We've been through more in 2 months than most families experience in a lifetime," Daniel replied. "I'd say that counts for something." "It counts for trauma bonding. That's not the same as genuine attachment." Hope stepped forward. "Can I say something?" Mrs. Patterson looked surprised. "Of course." "Daniel saved my life. He saved my mama's life. He almost died trying to protect us from people who wanted to hurt us." Hope's voice was steady, but her eyes blazed with conviction. "When my real daddy died, I thought I would never have a father again. I thought I would never feel safe again. But Daniel makes me feel safe. He listens to me. He believes in me. He told me I was brave even when I was scared. That's what dads do, right? Mrs. Patterson's expression softened. And Shadow? Hope continued. Daniel let me keep Shadow. He knew Shadow was the only thing that got me through the hardest days. He didn't have to do that. He did it because he loves me. She paused. I know 2 months isn't very long, but sometimes you just know. And I know Daniel is supposed to be my dad. I knew it the first time he held my hand and told me everything was going to be okay. Mrs. Patterson was quiet for a long moment. Well, she said finally, I think I have everything I need. Is that good or bad? Daniel asked. Mrs. Patterson looked at Hope at Shadow, sleeping peacefully at her feet at the photographs already hanging on the walls. Hope's drawings, Shadow's certificate, a picture of Thomas Miller that Sarah had insisted on including. It's good, she said. I'll recommend approval. Hope shrieked with joy and threw her arms around Daniel's neck. We did it! We did it! We did it! Daniel agreed, holding her tight. We really did. The medal ceremony happened on a crisp November morning. The whole town gathered in the square, the same square where Victor Crane had once held court as the most powerful man in Blackwood Valley. Now his name was Mud, his empire dismantled, his legacy destroyed. In his place stood a different kind of power. The power of courage, of sacrifice, of a little girl who had walked into fire and refused to back down. Mayor Williams, the interim mayor since the previous one was awaiting trial for his connection to Crane, stood at the podium with a microphone in one hand and a small velvet box in the other. We're gathered here today to honor extraordinary heroism, he said, to recognize individuals who in the face of overwhelming danger chose to act, who chose to fight, who chose to protect the innocent at any cost. He gestured to the front row, Lieutenant Daniel Reyes, Officer Marcus Webb, Sarah Miller, and most remarkable of all, Hope Miller, age 7. A murmur ran through the crowd. Everyone knew the story by now. The whole country knew. Hope Miller, the homeless girl who had saved a cop and his K-9, the child who had outsmarted a murderer, the daughter who had brought down an empire. Hope, would you come up here, please? Hope stood. Her legs felt like jelly. She looked at Daniel. Go on, he whispered. You earned this. She walked to the podium on unsteady feet, Shadow padding faithfully beside her. The crowd parted like a sea. Hope Miller, the mayor said, for extraordinary courage in saving the lives of Officer Marcus Webb and his K-9 partner Shadow, for exposing corruption at the highest levels of local government and for demonstrating bravery that would humble most adults, the town of Blackwood Valley is proud to present you with the Medal of Valor. He opened the velvet box. Inside was a gold medal hanging from a red, white, and blue ribbon. This is the highest honor our town can bestow. You've earned it, young lady. More than earned it. He draped the ribbon around Hope's neck. The medal rested against her chest, heavy with meaning. The crowd erupted in applause. Hope stood there, overwhelmed, tears streaming down her face. She looked at Daniel, at Sarah, at Marcus, who was clapping harder than anyone despite his still healing injuries. Then she looked at the sky. Daddy, she whispered, too quiet for anyone to hear. I did it. I was brave, just like you asked. A breeze stirred her hair, warm, gentle, like a hand brushing her cheek. She smiled. Hope, a reporter called out. Hope, how does it feel to be a hero? She turned to face the crowd. The microphone was in front of her. Everyone was waiting. She thought about the question, about everything she'd been through, about the fear and the pain and the loss, about the fire that had taken her father and the fire that had almost taken Daniel, about Shadow's loyal eyes and Daniel's strong hands and her mother's fierce love. I don't feel like a hero, she said finally. I just did what anyone would do. I saw someone who needed help and I helped. That's not special. That's just being human. The crowd went silent. My daddy was a hero, Hope continued. He ran into burning buildings to save strangers. He died trying to protect people he'd never met. That's real bravery. I'm just a kid who loves her dog and her family and didn't want to see them get hurt. She looked at Shadow, who was sitting beside her, watching her with those intelligent, devoted eyes. But if being a hero means protecting the people you love, then I guess Shadow is a hero too. He saved Daniel. He saved me. He never gave up even when he was hurt. Even when he was scared. She knelt and wrapped her arms around the German shepherd's neck. I think we should give him a medal too. The crowd laughed, but it was a warm laugh, an approving laugh. Mayor Williams smiled. I think that can be arranged. He produced a second box, smaller, containing a golden tag shaped like a badge. Shadow, for distinguished service and extraordinary bravery, you are hereby awarded the title of Honorary Canine of Blackwood Valley. He attached the tag to Shadow's collar. The dog's tail wagged furiously. The applause was even louder this time. Hope stood Shadow at her side, the metal warm against her chest. For the first time in 2 years, she felt like everything might actually be okay. The celebration continued into the afternoon. People Hope had never met came up to shake her hand, to thank her, to tell her how much her story had meant to them. She smiled until her face hurt, nodded until her neck ached, and accepted more hugs than she could count. But the moment that meant the most came when she was finally alone with her family. They gathered in Daniel's backyard. Daniel, Sarah, Hope, Marcus, Shadow, and Whisper. A small group, but complete. A family assembled from broken pieces, held together by something stronger than blood. I want to say something, Daniel said, raising a glass of lemonade. To the people who saved my life, not just literally, although you did that too, but in every way that matters. He looked at Hope. You walked into my world like a force of nature. You reminded me that courage comes in small packages, that family isn't about blood, it's about choice. You chose me, Hope, and I will spend the rest of my life being grateful. He looked at Sarah. You trusted me with your daughter. You trusted me with your heart. I know I can never replace Thomas. I would never try. But I hope I can honor his memory by being the father Hope deserves. He looked at Marcus. You fought beside me when any sane person would have run. You believed in justice when everyone around us had given up. You're not just my colleague, you're my brother. He raised his glass higher. To family, the one we're born with and the one we build. To family, everyone echoed. They drank. Hope's lemonade was too sweet and slightly warm, but she didn't care. It tasted like happiness. My turn, Sarah said, setting down her glass. I spent 8 months hiding in the forest, convinced that the world had abandoned us, that we had no future, that Hope would grow up invisible, forgotten, afraid. Her voice cracked. I was wrong, so wrong. She looked at her daughter. You showed me what real strength looks like, not hiding, not running, but standing up even when you're terrified, fighting back even when the odds are impossible. I'm so proud of you, baby. Your father would be so proud. Hope's eyes filled with tears. I miss him, Mama. I know. I miss him too. Sarah knelt and took Hope's hands. But he's not gone. Not really. He lives in you, in your courage, in your kindness, in that stubborn streak that drives me crazy sometimes. Hope laughed through her tears. I get that from you. Maybe a little. Sarah pulled her into a hug. I love you, Hope, more than anything in this world. I love you too, Mama. Marcus cleared his throat. I'm not much for speeches, but I want you to know. He looked at Hope. You saved my life. And more than that, you gave me a reason to keep fighting when I wanted to give up. I'm not good with kids. Never have been. But if you ever need anything, anything at all, I'm here. Always. Hope released her mother and crossed to Marcus. She hugged him carefully, mindful of his still healing ribs. Thank you for not dying, she said. Marcus laughed, wincing slightly. Thank you for not letting me. Shadow barked, apparently feeling left out. Hope turned and knelt beside him. Don't worry, boy. I didn't forget you. She scratched behind his ears in that special spot that made his tail go crazy. You're the bravest dog in the whole world. You protected Daniel. You protected me. You got shot, and you still kept fighting. Her voice softened. I know I'm not the person you were trained to work with. I know I'm just a kid. But I promise I'll take care of you forever. You'll never be alone again. Shadow leaned into her, his head resting on her shoulder. Whisper not to be outdone pushed her way between them and licked Hope's face. You too, Whisper. You too. Daniel watched the scene with a full heart. This was what healing looked like. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of love. Not forgetting the past, but building a future anyway. Hey, Hope. She looked up. Yeah, I have something for you. A present. Hope's eyes widened. A present? Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. He handed it to her. She opened it carefully. Inside was a silver locket, heart-shaped with delicate engravings around the edges. Open it, Daniel said. Hope pressed the tiny clasp. The locket swung open. On one side was a photograph of Thomas Miller, the same photograph that had hung in their forest camp that had survived the fire that destroyed everything else. On the other side was a photograph of Emily Reyes, Daniel's daughter, frozen forever at age 7, with the same honey-brown hair and bright smile that Hope herself wore. I thought they should be together, Daniel said quietly. The children we lost and the children we found, watching over each other. Hope stared at the locket. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Daniel, they'd be proud of you, both of them. Emily would have loved you. She would have looked at you and seen exactly what I see, the bravest, kindest, most extraordinary person in the world. Hope launched herself into his arms. Thank you. Thank you, Dad. Dad. The word healed something in Daniel's chest that had been broken for 3 years. He held his daughter, and let himself finally fully believe that second chances were real. 1 year later, the Miller-Reyes house was full of noise and chaos and love. Hope, 8 years old now, almost 9, came thundering down the stairs with Shadow at her heels. Her hair was longer, her face fuller, the haunted look in her eyes replaced by something bright and alive. Mama, Dad, we're going to be late. Sarah emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. Her nursing scrubs were crisp and clean. She'd gotten her license back, passed her exams, and now worked at the Blackwood Valley Hospital. The same hospital where Daniel had nearly died. The same hospital where their family had been born. Relax, sweetheart. We have plenty of time. The ceremony starts in an hour, and I still need to finish my speech. Daniel appeared from his office dressed in his formal uniform. He'd been promoted to chief of police after Sheriff Ortiz's arrest, a position he'd never wanted, but had accepted because someone needed to rebuild trust in local law enforcement. You've been practicing that speech for 2 weeks. You know it by heart. What if I forget something? What if I mess up? Daniel knelt to her level. Then you take a breath. You find my face in the crowd, and you remember that everyone in that room is rooting for you. You face down murderers, sweetheart. A few hundred people in folding chairs should be easy. Hope laughed. You make it sound so simple. The hard stuff is always simple. Scary, but simple. She hugged him tight. Thanks, Dad. Anytime. Now go finish getting ready. We leave in 30 minutes. Hope bounded back up the stairs, Shadow following. Sarah watched her go with a soft smile. She's changed so much. She's grown, Daniel agreed. But she's still the same girl who walked into a burning clearing and saved my best friend's life. And your life. And my life. Sarah crossed to him and straightened his tie. Have I told you lately how proud I am of you? You might have mentioned it once or twice. Well, I'm saying it again. She kissed him soft, sweet, full of promise. I love you, Daniel Reyes. I love you too, Sarah Miller Reyes. They'd gotten married 6 months ago in a small ceremony in Daniel's backyard. Hope had been the flower girl. Shadow had been the ring bearer. Marcus had been the best man. It hadn't erased the past. Nothing could do that. But it had built something new on top of the ashes. Okay, we really need to go now, Hope yelled from upstairs. Coming, Sarah called back. She grabbed her purse. Daniel grabbed his keys. Together they walked out the door. The dedication ceremony was held at the new Thomas Miller Memorial Park. Where the old Crane property had stood, the hunting lodge, the bunker, all of it now stood a beautiful public space, gardens, walking paths, a playground where children laughed and played, and at the center a bronze statue of a firefighter in full gear, hand outstretched helping someone unseen rise from the flames. The plaque at the base read, "Thomas Miller, hero, father, husband, friend." He ran toward the fire so others could run away. Hope stood at the podium, her speech clutched in trembling hands. Hundreds of people filled the rows of chairs, townspeople, officials, journalists, survivors, everyone who had been touched by the events of the past year. "My name is Hope Miller," she began. "Most of you know who I am. You've read the stories. You've seen the news. You know what I did." She paused, looking out at the crowd. "But what you don't know is that I almost didn't do it." A murmur ran through the audience. When I saw Officer Webb tied to that post, when I smelled the gasoline and saw the flames, I wanted to run. I wanted to hide. I wanted to go back to being invisible, because invisible people don't have to be brave. She looked down at her speech, then set it aside. But then I thought about my daddy. About how he never ran from fires, he ran toward them. About how he told me every single day to be brave. And I realized that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing the right thing anyway. Her eyes found Daniel in the front row. He nodded, encouraging. "This park is named after my father, but it's not just for him. It's for everyone who's ever been scared. Everyone who's ever felt invisible. Everyone who's ever wondered if they mattered." She stood straighter. "You matter. Your courage matters, even when no one sees it, even when you feel alone. You matter." She looked at the statue of her father. "Daddy, I hope you're watching. I hope you're proud. I tried to be brave just like you asked, and I found something I never expected. I found a family. Not just the family I was born with, but the family that chose me. Daniel, Marcus, Shadow. They chose me, just like you chose to run into that building, just like you chose to be a hero." Tears streamed down her face, but her voice stayed strong. "I used to think fire only destroys, but I was wrong. Fire also warms. It lights the way. It brings people together. The fire that took you away from me, it also led me to Daniel. It led me to Shadow. It led me home." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "So if you're watching, Daddy, if you can hear me, thank you. Thank you for teaching me to be brave. Thank you for loving me, even when I couldn't save you. Thank you for being my hero. I love you. Always and forever." She stepped back from the podium. The crowd rose to their feet. Applause thundered across the park. People were crying, strangers, officials, hardened journalists, all of them moved by the words of an 8-year-old girl. Hope walked back to her seat into the arms of her family. Daniel held her tight. "That was perfect. I didn't even use my speech. You spoke from the heart. That's always better." Sarah kissed her forehead. "Your father would be so proud." "You think so?" "I know so." Shadow pressed against Hope's legs, and Whisper, who had snuck in despite the no pets rule, wagged her tail from under the chair. Hope looked at the statue of her father one more time. The bronze firefighter seemed to glow in the afternoon sun, hand outstretched forever, reaching towards someone who needed help. She touched the locket at her neck, the one with Thomas on one side and Emily on the other. "I found them, Daddy," she whispered. "I found our family." The breeze stirred, warm, gentle, like an answer. Hope smiled. She was home. That evening, the Miller-Reyes family gathered in their backyard. No crowds, no cameras, no speeches. Just them, Daniel, Sarah, Hope, Shadow, Whisper, and Marcus, who had become such a constant presence that he practically lived there anyway. They sat around a small fire pit watching the flames dance against the darkening sky. "You know," Marcus said, breaking the comfortable silence, "a year ago I was tied to a post in the middle of the forest, convinced I was going to die. Now I'm eating s'mores with my best friend's family." He shook his head. "Life is strange." "Life is beautiful," Sarah corrected. Even when it's strange. Especially when it's strange, Daniel added. Hope leaned against her father's shoulder. Shadow curled at her feet. The locket rested warm against her chest. The medal from the ceremony hung in her bedroom next to Shadow's honorary canine badge, and the drawing she'd made a year ago, the one with Daniel holding a bucket of water standing between her family and a wall of fire. Dad, yeah, sweetheart. Do you think we'll always be this happy? Daniel thought about the question, about everything they'd been through, about the scars they carried and the wounds that had healed, about the fire that had taken so much and the love that had given so much more. I think happiness isn't something you find and keep forever, he said finally. It's something you choose every day, and some days it's harder to choose than others. But as long as we have each other, I think we'll always find our way back to it. Hope nodded slowly. I like that. Me too. She snuggled closer to him, watching the fire. Dad. Yeah. Thank you. For what? For choosing me. Daniel's throat tightened. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Thank you for letting me. The fire crackled. The stars emerged. The family sat together whole and healing, loved and safe. Somewhere in the universe, Thomas Miller watched his daughter laugh. Emily Reyes watched her father smile. Two souls lost to fire reunited in the family their loved ones had built. And in the warmth of that backyard, surrounded by people who loved her, Hope Miller finally understood the truth she had been named for. Hope is not the absence of darkness. It is the light we carry through it. It is not the promise that things will be easy. It is the courage to believe they will be worth it. It is not something we find at the end of the journey. It is something we become along the way. She had walked through fire. She had lost her father. She had been invisible, forgotten, afraid. But she had never stopped hoping. And hope, real hope, the kind that survives anything, had brought her home. The fire burned low. The family stayed close. And in the quiet of that Colorado night, surrounded by love and warmth, and the steady heartbeat of a future, she had earned Hope Miller, closed her eyes, and finally let herself rest. She was not invisible anymore. She was not afraid anymore. She was not alone anymore. She was home. And home, she had learned, was not a place. It was the people who chose to love you. It was the courage to love them back. It was the fire that warmed instead of burned. It was hope, always hope, forever hope.